Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Today on the show, we're going to be discussing Pusat KOMAS' latest report titled Malaysia Racism Report, a Decade in Review from 2015 to 2024. And the report provides a stark reminder that racism in Malaysia is not just a social issue, it is deeply entrenched in our institutions and our policy making. Now, as we navigate Malaysia's multicultural identity, the question we need to ask ourselves is, are we making real progress in terms of tackling racism and racial discrimination, or are we simply trapped in this cycle of political and social division? So joining me on the show today to discuss this report in further detail, I have with me the good folks from Pusat KOMAS, Faribel Maglin Fernandez, who is the Operations Manager for Pusat KOMAS, and Umi Maisarah Kamis, who is the Program Coordinator at Pusat KOMAS. So welcome, both of you, to the show. Thank you for joining me. This is an incredible work of 10 years to put together this report. Faribel, I'll start with you. When you look at the past decade covering racism in Malaysia, what stands out to you? How has racism and racial discrimination evolved, I would use the word, in Malaysia in the past decade?
Yes, thanks Melisa, thanks for having us here today. Well, you use the word evolve, and that's pretty sad. Evolving in racism is not a very nice thing to say. It's not something that we are proud of.
We shouldn't be proud of.
We shouldn't be proud of at all. And looking at this decade of this, us producing this report, looking at the trends, looking at the content that keeps spewing, it's getting more disheartening. We are feeling more sad, like how come every other time there is something that is triggering? Why there's always so much of hate, so much of discomfort, or even the sense of not feeling like you are a Malaysian anymore, you are different. Because your race is different, because your skin color is different, or you look different. And those are the things that really fills us like, what are we doing not right? How can we make the wrong right? And where can we start, and where should we start? So I think that's where we are looking at. And a lot of things and a lot of times that incidents gets politicized. And
yes.
So that's where, looking at the trend itself, there's lots of politicization of the issue. The issue itself may not be a racist issue, but the way it is being manipulated, the way the provocations happen, the way it's spewed or stirred, that direction becomes a very, there's connotations to racial sentiments, racial slurs and discomfort among communities. So I think that's where it is. And also the 10-year review or the 10-year decade, we see the spikes a lot happening during the general election.
Okay.
So when election comes, I think it becomes a tool of to get your votes. So it's politicized a lot more. Race, religion is always politicized a lot more. And that's where I think the problem is, where politicians use it for the benefit of getting votes.
Right. Okay. Umi, can I ask you, when you worked on this report and you looked at the trends over the past 10 years, what struck you as the most concerning? I mean, Faribel raised the issue of politicization of racism, but when you look at the overall picture, what do you think is concerning that needs to be highlighted?
Thanks, Melisa. I think I would totally agree with Faribel how politicians, for us in this report, we wrote it as incitement, incitement of from non-racial issue becoming a racialized issue that also was used by politicians, public figures. But for me, while I was doing this report, so this is my second time doing this report, I think the most concerning was how in the parliament, well, for this year we actually added a new trend on the parliament, So we do like a whole monitoring of what was said during the sittings, during the debates. And then I think it was the most concerning how race was used subtly. They were inserting on how one race is above another. It's like
In Parliament.
yeah, in Parliament. It's like very, if you hear it in one's time, you wouldn't recognize it as racism. But when you truly hear how they were saying that, oh, my race is better than yours, you should be thankful for my race for what we have done to you, then you know how bad it is, because it's in Parliament. How would it go outside of Parliament to the people? Yep.
Almost like dog whistling, right? So yes, what does it speak to you? So you've covered this for 10 years. I'm curious about the trends, right, and how we interpret that. So what do we do with this information that it is really the politicians, our elected representatives, making these comments in the kind of hallowed grounds of Dewan Rakyat? How do you interpret the findings, Faribel?
So the findings, that how would I interpret, it's really looking at what suits them best at that point of time.
Without thought of the repercussions?
The repercussion, yeah, without thought of it at all. So it's like in Parliament, for example, it can be an issue of Teresa Kopp raising on the halal certification.
I remember.
Yes. So it is just about the certification. And she is raising it as a member of Parliament, elected member of Parliament, and she is speaking for her constituency, which means there are races across. You have the Indian, the Chinese, and the Malays as well. So she's speaking for her people who elected her. But in the Parliament, it was, when she raised up on the cause of the certification, it was spewed, or it was turned around saying that, oh, if you are not a Malay Muslim, you cannot speak on this issue. So how it becomes a politicized issue, looking at the member of Parliament of not a particular race, but cannot speak on this, but this is affecting everyone. It won't only affect the Malay Muslims.
Right, so that was an example of how an issue becomes politicized and racialized.
Racialized, that's right, that's right. And looking at another trend is also on the migrant or the refugees. They are always targeted. And the trend actually picks up 2020 when the spikes.
The COVID, during the lockdown.
Yes, that's right, during those lockdown. How they were, as a migrant worker, during the lockdown, companies were shut down. Now they didn't have much of avenue to get food. Their place of stay was always, all so packed right inside that small unit. So of course the spread of the virus becomes an easy spread. And of course the number of cases among them will be high. But it was spewed that they were the cause of the spread.
So from 2020 onwards, you notice an increase in racism and racial discrimination that was more xenophobic.
Yes, that's right.
I understand. Umi, can I ask you, 2015 to 2024, that essentially is the start of social media. And then you have that progression, right, of when social media is used to disseminate information and it can spread like wildfire, an issue can become viral. So, for instance, we've had recent issues of racial insensitivities that some people argue are isolated incidents, but because of social media have spread like wildfire. How do you interpret the role of social media in your work with the Decade Review?
I think yes, of course, social media, because it's limitless, right? There's like everyone can speak whatever they wanted, and there's also very little control of what maybe like Facebook or Twitter, what could they limit the kind of speech that was said in their own social media. So for us, I think the most concerning thing was once it spreads very fast, and then because social media, they have this called social bubble, where you only see the things that you are already involved with. You already read this, and then it comes again. It comes like people keep like convincing you. You know what? This is true. This is what happening. So you couldn't see like the other side of the coin. You couldn't understand the whole issue. So and then it ingrains in your brain, and then you think, oh, okay. just like what Faribel said about the refugees, and then I think in 2018, 2020 like that, there was a hashtag buang Rohingya ke laut. Yeah, that kind of hashtag. So everyone was like using that kind of hashtag to say that we need to like throw out all the refugees to the sea.
That is horrible.
So yeah, and then of course social media, I think the other one was the problem on how there's a very blur line between freedom and speech and hate speech. So like people don't know, it's either it's a freedom to say this, or it's already become a hate speech that could impact the other person. Yeah.
No, I hear you. I hear that's actually a really good point, that it can spread, and sometimes people jump on this kind of mob mentality. Okay, so we understand that this has been happening consistently over the past decade, but every year I cover the Racism Report, and every year Pusat KOMAS comes up with fantastic recommendations. Let's talk about what can be done moving forward and what has been done. It strikes me that as we review the past decade, we've had 5 administrations, 5 governments. Have they been receptive to your recommendations? What's been implemented? What's changed for the better, Faribel, in your experience?
Well, what's changed for the better? Probably I would say the current minister or the ministry is trying its very, very best to reduce temperatures when there is a kind of a racial slur or a hate, or when we know that the flame is getting higher.
Yes.
So he's trying really hard to put down that flame by having some kind of mediation at that particular point of time. So he comes up fast. He comes up fast with the statement.
Is that helpful? I do want to ask you, because when tensions arise, racial tensions arise, politicians maybe with the best intentions step in to want to, as you say, cool the temperatures, the heated environment, but they draw more attention to it, and sometimes they don't say the most intelligent thing or the most appropriate thing, and they can inflame a situation. But in your experience, does it help when someone of stature or standing in a community steps in?
Yeah, it does. It does. However, I think it cannot just stop there. It has to be a little bit more effort of doing more than just saying something and cooling down the temperature. I think there must be a lot more mechanisms put in place. And these are the recommendations that we have been trying to say for the past 10 years, and we are still saying it. One of our key recommendations is establishing laws and policies at hand.
Laws and policies.
Yes. So one of it is what we are saying is to have an independent harmony commission. Okay. Of course, in the Jabatan Perpaduan Integrasi, JPNIN, they have the mediation processes. They have a council that goes and mediated when there's some tension issues between different races. They have that. But what we are saying is that is within the ministry, that is within the government. It will still be seen as, it will still be politicized by some party, by some groups of it.
You're concerned that it might not have the trust of everyone?
Yes. Okay. So this independent commission is something that we are saying that they are independent on its own. So when they are going to act, they are going to act as an independent body. And that will bring a different flavor and a different kind of temperature of cooling down as well.
What do you see as their role? I mean, let's say I've heard of this recommendation before, having an independent commission. What do you see as their role? What position would they play that's separate from, say, government?
So just like how we have the Human Rights Commission, which is an independent body, so that's how we are hoping for the same National Harmony Commissions. So basically they are playing like neutral role, not taking any sides of the political party, and then they should be the one who are the first one people who go and like, well, there's racial tensions, they should be the one who come out with statement. They should be the one who come out with solutions, because right now it's very like, as you mentioned, like the one who is talking, and then we don't know whether the talk is effective or not. And then there's also like a very like, maybe sometimes this politician talk about it, maybe PMS talk about it, but does it truly give any effectiveness, because it's just an individual. So we hope with this National Harmony Commission, which should be consists of very trusted people who are like, who deserve to be there and trusted by the community, give the best solutions for any racial tensions.
So you mentioned law and policy. Do you think the current laws we have are insufficient to deal with racism and racial discrimination incidents? I mean, when you think about justice and recourse for justice, do we need to spell out punishment for these incidents? Will it deter people from thinking they can they can commit acts of racism and racial discrimination without any repercussions?
Yeah. So I think, Melisa, you mentioned about punishment, and this is where we are saying that why do we go immediately to the extremes?
Okay, so because people want blood mostly, right?
Yes.
When something happens, you know, people an apology is not good enough. We want to cancel them. We essentially want them to pay for what they did.
Yes.
But you don't agree. What do you think?
It's not that we don't agree. What we're saying is there must be some processes to it. Okay, something happened. Let's have a conversation. Let's bring both together. Let's see how we can identify the root cause of it, because the root cause of it may not be in any context being racial. It's a racial issue at all.
Okay.
So it's just the difference of opinion, and this is where let's discuss it a bit more further. Let's find a way to solve this issue, and when we do that, and when there's an independent commission, when they do that, immediately we can. There should be an immediate measure that, okay, it's already coming down, the temperature is coming down. And then, you know, we give warning. And then there's supposed to be a warning kind of a thing. Now, if all fail, okay, then we go to the next level of punishment. Then, you know, there must be another, a stronger enforcement to such act. If it's a repeated act,
So give the opportunity to learn and be better and rehabilitate.
Yes, that's right. Okay. So that's where we are coming from. And the current laws that we have, and say for example, if racism were to happen in a business context of it, in the rental issue, as we have seen many times, it's always the case, right? So this is where I think KPKT, the laws there in the housing and rental laws, there must be a component of no discrimination, because so if you violate this, then you're violating the law. So those are the things that are missing in this kind of laws that we have. Say for example, even in the education. So we have.
How does it manifest? How does racism, racial discrimination manifest in education? There were more than 100 incidents recorded, wasn't it, in the past 10 years? Yes, very well. Go ahead. Yes.
So even in the education, like say the quota system itself is right. That itself is discrimination already by race. So because it's the quota system and entry to the tertiary education itself. And how does it manifest? Then you will see that the those who do not fall into the larger quota systems, they will opt for private uni, private studies, and then there will be this whole class issue already. You know, oh, because you went into the private use, because you have got more money, but it's not the matter of whether you have got more money or less money. So there's always that tension between differentiation, right? Because you went to the public uni, you are not of the same par of those who went to the private uni. So there's always this differentiation. And there's always this pressure when there's a quota system, those by merit, those who has that merit, they don't get that opportunity easily. Although I must commend that Dato' Sri Anwar Ibrahim last year, and it's covered in our report, that he said that, okay, those with the 10 years, they must be eligible to be accepted in the public university. And that I felt it was a positive effort by government itself, and we must call out to it, because those are doing a little bit step by step away from affirmative action.
I understand. But the idea is not to have this at the discretion of any one person, but to institutionalize it so that it's fair and transparent. Umi, can I ask you, I'm hoping that when we have this conversation a few years from now, that we won't be covering some of the same issues, and that there is progress to report about, you know, work on a maybe independent commission. What would you like to see in terms of progress? What would progress look like to you?
For me, progress would look like if there's less pages of this report.
Less pages of the report. Yes, I agree. Less incidences documented, because you're quite meticulous in scanning the media, reading the Hansard.
And then I think for me, speaking as a Malay Muslim coming from the majority, I think for me, I hope if the progress has to be seen from my own eyes, I hope for me, if I would like to visit temple or church, someone wouldn't frame me as going against my own religion. So I want that kind of safety and security, being as a Malay Muslim who just want to embrace inclusive and variety of culture and religions in the country.
Faribel, can I ask you what progress would look like to you, and also what is it that you'd like Malaysians watching to do? I mean, sometimes we feel like we're part of the problem, but we aren't part of the solution.
Yeah, correct. So I think as a Malaysian, as an ordinary person like me, I think let's be more informed, or be properly informed before we jump the gun. So when we read something on the news, let's take a step back, take it cool, and understand it, and let's do a fact check a little bit more. Let's not just jump and be very fast on our keyboards commenting and making all those statements that we are very happy to make fast. And also education itself. Let's start with education, having that kind of social cohesion programs with youth, continuously having a lot of conversation with different communities.
This is quite interesting. I just do want to ask you, often people talk about the need for more interfaith dialogue, more social cohesion discussions. Are they effective, or are they surface level band-aid solutions that we really need more structural issues to address?
Yes, I think the interface dialogue, while it is sounding very nice, but at the end we are going back to our own bubble system. And that's where the internal change must happen, because immediately we will try to label somebody something, and that's where we are saying that dialogue on its own is not enough, but we have to actually translate it to the internal change, and the internal change can only happen through processes from the beginning.
Umi, just in the last minute so that we have left, your generation, your younger cohort, do you see positive change? Are you encouraged by what you see?
I feel a very mixed, very mixed feelings. I do think that when we did, because Pusat KOMAS, we have our own community workshop, we did Bengkel Bangsa Malaysia. So meeting these youths, to be honest, they are compared to meeting like an older cohort. To be honest, meeting younger cohort is much more easier to talk about this issue, because they are still very exploring things. They are very open. They are very open to discussions. They wanted to know. They asked a lot of questions, but somehow in social media, at the same time, there's too much of a hate speech going around. But to be honest, I don't know what ages all of these comments coming. So, but based on my own experience meeting the community, to be honest, I have a very confidence in the younger generations to make a better Malaysia.
That's really encouraging, and it's a wonderful note to end on. I want to thank both of you for coming on the show. Not just coming on the show, but also for all the work that you've put into 10 years worth in just a few pages, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's all we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.